Welcome to Module 6 of the Awakened Warriors Playbook, where we're going to dive into what it takes to become or emerge as the guide. Because what we've covered is building that emotional mastery, becoming unconquerable. We've talked about developing intelligent communication inside of ourselves. And then when you have those two things, using those two as the foundation for emerging as a guide, as a leader for other people. Before I dive into leadership though, what I'd like to discuss with you is about navigating through the clutter. And when I talk about the clutter, what I'm really saying is the bull, S-H-I-T. So I told you a little bit about the story of me waiting for 2012 and this radical transformation that was going to change everything. And what I want to just touch on is that before you can emerge as the guide, first we need to learn how to navigate through the misinformation, through the quote-unquote fake news. Because if we allow ourselves to become attached to one idea that is in fact false, then we're going to be leading other people down a false narrative, which means that eventually that our reputation is going to be damaged. And I know that there's a lot of people that talk about our reputation, but and how that doesn't matter. When in reality, your reputation does matter significantly. Who you are is really one of the only things that you can control inside of this world, and how people see you. So what is it that stops people from remaining neutral is the need and desire for certainty. Meaning that it is uncomfortable for us to remain in a place of massive amounts of uncertainty, of not knowing. That is not a comfortable place for a human being, a human mind to operate from. But as free thinkers, it's a place that we operate from regularly. Meaning that if we don't keep ourselves grounded on solid footing, it's easy for us to get swept away in speculation, as we talked about earlier. And so what it takes is resisting the temptation to accept something just because it fits into our narrative. It takes the ability and the desire and the drive to look into and understand competing pieces of information that may be counter to what you just experienced, so that you can understand both sides of the story rather than just the one. Aristotle spoke of something called the excluded middle. It's where we look at something and everything is either black or everything is white. So being able to look at that center ground, pulling information from way over here and pulling information from way over here, and to bring it into the middle ground and remain there is one of the key lessons. So now that I've covered that, let's dive into the fun stuff of how we emerge as a guide. Because we've done all the work, right? We've focused on developing our emotional mastery, becoming unconquerable. We've worked on intelligent communication and how we develop that, and now we come out the other side where we start developing ourselves as leaders, as people who can go out into the community with our friends and have a positive impact because we've mastered ourselves, we know ourselves, we've mastered emotional mastery, we're capable of being somebody who they will want to follow and interact with. I remember when I first started watching YouTube videos, there's a lot of people that now have millions and millions of followers that I started watching when they were at like 100. And at that point in time, I remember wishing and wanting, desiring to be the kind of person that would have a YouTube channel and could go out and share their truth. The truth was, at that time, I didn't have the courage to stand up and do it. I hadn't developed my communication abilities. I hadn't developed emotional mastery. I hadn't developed the being able to navigate through the clutter of information out there. And I didn't develop the ability to stay neutral in topics and to try to understand both sides. I was swept away in the information. And so there's so many reasons why I'm glad that I didn't begin that journey at that point in time, but there's lots of reasons why I wish I would have. But after going through that journey, of where I was to where I am now, getting to speak to thousands and thousands of people and being able to run live classes, working with people and teaching people, being a guide for people, it fills my heart and my soul. Is that I knew at that point in time in 2008 and 2010 what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to get there. And that's part of what I want to help you do, is how do you go from where you are today to where you want to be? If you want to be that awakened warrior, if you want to move into that next level, becoming the spear is what I call it. Because when you master, you know yourself, you become an unconquerable soul. You master intelligent communication. You emerge as the guide. Now, and you have a focused goal. Now you become the spear. You become the type of person that the corrupt elite fear. You become the type of person that can create change. You become the type of person that is powerful. No longer do the limits of society hold you back. Instead, you create the future of your reality. That's powerful. So the importance of becoming the guide. This world desperately needs people to stand for what is right. Far too many people sit quietly on the sidelines, not voicing their opinion, when the fact is, if they did, this world could change. And change only happens when we come together. In the past, there have been single individuals that brought massive amounts of people together. And what I'm hypothesizing for today, today's reality, is that perhaps it won't be a single individual anymore. Perhaps it will be multiple leaders throughout the world that bring together their groups of people, that bring them together and create movement. Each one of us out here that are creating a ripple effect on this planet, we are changing the world as we go. And every person, if you're still watching at this point, every guide, every leader, they have something inside of them that other people need. And they carry the burden of using that power inside of them for good. If you are the type of person that is capable of becoming a guide, becoming a leader, then in essence, you're holding the responsibility of using that. How many people will be missing out? How many people will be hurt by you not becoming the leader that you are meant to be? If you become a guide, if you become a leader, then by being that person, you have the opportunity, and by nature of being a guide and a leader, you will awaken other guides and leaders. You will build this community just by being yourself, by being willing to step into those uncomfortable places, by using persistence and determination and building yourself. You awaken that spirit in other people. Like Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. Ultimately, what it comes down to is leading other people to a purposeful end is evolution. That is the evolution of our species. That's the evolution of our civilization, how we work as humanity. So what happens if you do not become the guide? A void will exist where you could be and did not show up. People won't get the opportunity to learn the valuable wisdom and experience that you have gained in your life. And that means that people out there who are struggling through things that you have already overcome inside of your journey, people out there who are struggling to overcome that, they will never get the chance to learn from you when you could help them step through it. There's a quote that Wayne Dyer says. He says, "Don't die with the music still in you. Step up." Les Brown says, "Live full and die empty." That means whatever is in there, get it out. So what happens if you do become the guide? Have you ever heard of the 100th monkey effect? So in the early 50s, there was this Japanese monkey that was being studied on an island. And these monkeys were being fed sweet potatoes as food. Most of the monkeys, in fact all of the monkeys, were eating them dirty, covered with sand. Well, there was this one female monkey that learned to wash off the sweet potato. And she taught her young to wash off the sweet potato. Well, before too long, all of the young monkeys were washing, or most of the young monkeys were washing off the sweet potatoes before eating them. While the older ones, they weren't doing it, they had to be taught by the younger generation. And when the older ones were taught by the younger generation, pretty soon, at some point, the entire island nearly was washing their sweet potatoes. And although the exact number is not known, a strange thing happened. And that's that monkeys on other islands, all of a sudden, without contact with this other island where the monkeys were washing their sweet potatoes, monkeys on these other islands all began washing their sweet potatoes. So what's theorized is that there was like this critical point of awareness, that was reached within that species of monkey, where when they hit that critical point, all of a sudden, monkeys all over the place picked up on that information. You know, Nikola Tesla spoke about picking up information from something akin to the Akashic Records. You know, from this knowledge base that is available to all of us that's outside our perceptual reality. And this training isn't about that. But what I want to get hone the point in on is that by you becoming and emerging the leader, by studying strategy, by studying the principles that other leaders have developed and used in order to lead other people, to create movements, by putting yourself out there, by doing that, you're helping us reach this certain level, this point of awareness where other people will awaken and we can change the face of this world. What stops people from becoming a guide? Well, survival. And there's this belief that's been widely accepted by society that being wealthy is a bad thing, that having power is a bad thing. When in reality, having wealth, having power, having abundance is what allows us to do the things that truly matter for the rest of the world. You know, how we use our power is determined on who we are on the inside. It just amplifies what's there. So if we're stuck in survival mode, it is our duty to figure out how to free ourselves from survival. There are people out there that have done it. I have a family member that was homeless, living in her car, and now she makes well over 6 figures a year. It's possible. If survival is your issue, the obstacle is the way. The next thing that holds people back from becoming a guide and a leader is stress. It's allowing things inside of our life that doesn't encourage the power and the connection and that creativity inside of ourselves. If we're living inside of a place where we feel constant emotional turbulence or stress, it's time for a change. It's time to make a decision to free yourself from what is keeping you from taking that next step. Good life, joyful life, a peaceful life is possible for you. It's possible. So what's stopping you from taking the steps? You know, a lot of people feel like they're stuck, like they can't take them. And perhaps that's true. Yet, there are people out there who have escaped terrible situations, who felt that there was no other way out, and yet they had to learn what it took to get there. The obstacle is the way. What stops people from becoming the guide is not developing an unconquerable mind and body. What stops people from becoming a guide is not developing intelligent communication. What stops people from becoming a guide is never defining their life purpose, drifting through life, allowing others to spoon feed information without any clear and definite purpose, never focusing on a goal. Finding a reason, a purpose that you would die for and live for it. Find a purpose that you would die for and live for it. If I could lay my life on the line and watch all of the hidden technologies be released to change this planet for my kids, for you, I would do that. What stops people from becoming a guide is a negative mindset, focusing on what they don't have versus what they do. You know, so many people, we hear them talk about what's the key to living a happy life. They say gratitude. And we think that if we feel gratitude now, we're supposed to feel happy now. The reality is that if we feel gratitude now, and we build that gratitude muscle, because it is a muscle, it's not something that just shows up instantly, it will affect our future. It will impact our future. And so feeling gratitude for what we have is by focusing on the good that is in our lives, not on what we are lacking from. What is it that stops a person from becoming a guide is rigid thinking. It's being inflexible in what we are willing to allow ourselves to do. How much longer will you accept the life that you are living? And what will it take for you to make a decision to make those changes? What is it that stops somebody from being a guide? Is mental programs, their beliefs, lacking self-confidence. Do you believe that you are the type of person that's capable of leading others? Do you believe that you are the type of person that could create change? Because if you don't, you're not gonna. Plain and simple. You won't take the steps. If you can embrace the fact inside that you have the ability to create change inside this world, to help other people, to have an impact, if you can believe and grasp just one of those things, that it is possible for you to become that, that's all it takes. The rest of it starts to fall into place. So what does it take to become the guide? Well, first of all, we just covered it. It's allowing yourself to believe that you are capable of achieving whatever it is that you wish to achieve, to being that kind of person who you intend to be, to end up being that is possible. It takes consistent action. It's not just one day of feeling that spark of inspiration where you just, oh, you know that it's possible, like you can do it. And then the next day, all of that motivation is gone. Does that sound familiar? Because that next day, that's when action and persistence are required. That's when your will and fortitude are being called upon to create change. What it takes to become a guide is developing a healthy and energetic body and mind, vibrancy of life. Without vibrancy, without that energy to share, if you are running on very low levels of fuel inside of your body, you don't have the energy to share with others. You don't have the energy to work with others. And so develop a vibrant energy store where you wake up and you know if you're not feeling like you're 100%, you know what needs to be done in order, the adjustments that you can make to get you to 100%. Are you at 100% right now? If not, what can you do? If you don't know, it's time to learn. What it takes to become a guide is learning how to communicate effectively. It's learning to understand body language of another. It takes practice. That practice and persistence and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. You probably don't feel ready to be a guide or a leader, and you won't. You won't feel ready. Take steps anyway. You step into that being uncomfortable and you make progress even though you're not ready. It takes study. It takes forming certain strategies. You know, when I say strategy, you think about it, there are people out there who have made significant progress. And you know what they did? They studied people who came before them who made significant progress in the same place, and they modeled, they copied what they did. That's developing strategy. It's not just taking haphazard leaps into nowhere. It's guiding ourselves on a direct path. It's having absolute, unconquerable focus. That means being able to maintain the energy, the vibrancy of mind, the focus, the direction, despite the emotional upsets and turmoils and the stuff that comes with life. It's staying focused on your outcome and your mission, even when life inevitably throws you a curve and it's hard to continue on. Because challenges will show up. That's part of life. They're gonna happen. And are you going to stay on your path when they do? It's being able to take successful principles and apply them in your life. It's constantly seeking that growth. It's constantly learning. It's like they say, leaders are readers. That's overused, but it's doable. Ultimately, emerging as a leader is a worthwhile goal. Will you achieve it overnight? No. But when you do, will it be worth all of the effort that you put in? Absolutely. Whether you go out and you impact one life or you impact 10 million lives, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you stepped up and you made the decision to emerge as a leader. What's one person that you admire? A person that you really look up to? Write that person down. Look at their life and see what they did, the choices they made, where they spent their time, what they studied. Learning from other people's lives is one of the most valuable resources that we can get. With the 3 building blocks in place, we move into the next phase, and that is implementation. How do we use all of these concepts and ideas in our own life to actually make real impact? Well, let's cover that in the next module.